how the scriptures are being fulfilled. But I want you to remember one thing. That Abrahamic promise that God made to Abraham was there's conditional covenants in the Bible and unconditional covenants. The unconditional covenants in the Bible are typical of salvation. But conditional covenants require works. And we're going to talk about that today. Now, you that were in Wednesday night's class are going to get a little bit of a rehash of what Wednesday night's class was, because it was very much involved in today's class also. But God made a promise to Abraham. In your seed, singular, will what? In your seed, singular. Come on, somebody finish the rest of that. In your seed, Abraham, will all of the nations of the earth be what, Brother Wallace?
Be blessed.
Be blessed.
Yes.
All right. There was another thing that we don't think about so much, and we may not even like. But it's a fact. Those that curse you, I will curse. And those that bless you, I'll bless. Now that's a fact. Period. And it doesn't mean how good they are or how bad they are. It is an unconditional promise that God made to Abraham. You know why the Jewish people are some of the richest people in the world?
God bless them.
The businessman.
Well, it's not what they are.
God's blessing.
It is God's blessing on them. God gave them that blessing. Now, I was talking to one of my students last week, and he said, boy, I'll tell you something. If you find a Jew, he's usually rich. There aren't very many poor Jews. But if he's a Christian, he's rich and blessed. Just think about that one for a little bit. He's rich and blessed. Now, the covenant we're talking about today, and we're on page number what? What's your page? We're on age number 3, the flood age, chapter 9. And that's where we are in the book too. Okay? If you read the book, that's where we are in the book. Okay? Now, what page are you on? Mine's 25.
26.
Yours is 26? Okay, because my page numbers are different than yours. All right. Let's think about some things. We have Noah. Why did God decide to destroy man, beast, fowl, and creeping things by the flood? The answer to that is maybe 2 answers.
One was the gene pool was
There's a gene pool pollution. There was a corruption in the lineage. Now, either one of 2 things. All right, there are 2 different views of this. Either one of them is called the Zethite view, and that the line, the lineage of Seth was corrupted by their marrying into the ungodly people of the earth. Okay? The other, and probably, as I study more, I used to hold by that view, it's tenacious. But as I study history, the writings of the rabbis, we asked, the last thing we asked Brother Minsick last week, he's Jewish background, what did he say about the problem? Why did God destroy the earth? Why did he say? What? You remember what he said?
It had 6 toes.
What? Well, now we have that in there too. But what happened? There was a gene pool pollution problem. In other words, in Genesis 6 and chapter 1 through there, the Nephilim that we're talking about was, according to the rabbis, according to the book of Enoch also. Now, the book of Enoch we have goes back to 300 BC, before Christ. Okay? And it actually names the angels by name that actually cohabited with women and what they did. Now, later on, it says also that there would be some more problems.
I have an hour lecture by Chuck Missler on this very thing.
Yeah.
I just listened to it. It's very interesting.
Mm-hmm. Numbers 13:33 and Genesis 6 and 4. Let's go back there and remember this. Okay, you can cross-reference that to this right here. The races had corrupted themselves in one or 2 ways. Either it was a Zethite theory, or they had cohabited with angelic demonic forces. Okay, and they had this race of Nephilim, we know that they're Nephilim, and what does Nephilim mean? Nephilim. What does that mean?
Fallen ones?
Fallen ones. Thank you, brother. Fallen ones. Genesis 6 and 4. Someone turn to Genesis 6 and 4. You probably have that in Hebrew even. But, no, not today.
Last week.
Well, I've got one here. All right, Genesis 6 and 4. And Brother Lee, Numbers 13:33, if you want to go there.
13:33?
Yeah, Numbers 13:33. And Brother Randall. Genesis 6 and 4.
The Nephilim were on the earth in those days and also afterwards, when the sons of God came into the daughters of men, and they bore children to them. Those were the mighty men who were of old, men of renown.
All right. Now, the book of Enoch said that you know all the vampire stories and everything that you have in the movies today? This is where it came from. They were vampires. These people were. You know, God did not give flesh to be eaten at this time. Did you know that? No animal was supposed to be eaten at this time. There were sacrifices, but people were not eating flesh. It says that these Nephilim were hunters, and they killed. And they ate flesh, and they drank blood. And not only did they kill animals, which they weren't supposed to, but they started eating people. And drinking their blood. Okay. And guess what later on, if that is true, guess what ungodly sacrifices later on would be carried on with this. Now it says, Brother Randall, read that one more time and pay attention closely to what it says.
The Nephilim were on the earth in those days.
In those days. Circle that. In those days. What days is this talking about?
Before the flood.
Before the flood. And then what does it say else?
And also afterward.
And also afterwards. So it must have happened afterwards again. All right. Now, Brother Lee, Numbers 13:33. What's it say there?
There we saw the giants, the descendants of Enoch from the giants. And we were like grasshoppers in our own sight, and we were in their sight.
Okay, what's this talking about? The Nephilim again. The Nephilim again. Now, when is this?
The days of
After
days
the
of
flood.
patriarchs.
In the days of the patriarchs. What was it, Brother Lee?
After the flood.
After the flood. And what was happening? Who was going into the land? Now let's read the whole. Where does that whole thing start there, brother? Start where the subject starts?
You reread the
Yeah, start where. Can you go up there where this is what it's talking about? This is talking about, this is the spies that went into the land of Canaan. Okay? These are the spies that went into the land of Canaan. Remember the two guys that brought back the good report? Who were they? Joshua and Caleb. All right. And later on, by the way, the land that they wanted, when they went into the land, they lived. The only ones that lived long enough to go into the land. Here they were old people, and guess what land they wanted to, where they wanted to go get it? Right where the Nephilim were. They said, we whoop them because God's going to help them. Let's go ahead and read that whole subject there, Brother Lee.
Okay, I'll just start at the first, in that beginning paragraph.
Yeah.
Verse 32.
Okay.
And they gave the children of Israel a bad report of the land which they had spied out, saying, the land through which we have gone as spies is a land that devours its inhabitants, and all the people whom we saw in it are men
Okay.
of great
The
stature.
land must have been eaten. They must have been cannibals too, huh? All right.
What chapter was that?
Numbers 13. Go ahead, Brother Lee.
And there we saw the giants, the descendants of Enoch, came from the giants, and we were like grasshoppers in our own sight, and we were in their sight.
All right. Now, what did David deal with later? Yeah, Goliath and his brothers. They were big people. Now, when God told them to go into this land, what did He tell them to do? What was kind of a real weird command, which is contrary to God. Yes.
I don't remember the whole thing, but I remember there was something hanging off a window, and this lady saved them.
Well, that was an.
Is that a different story?
That's a different story. Brother. That's a totally different story. And we're not on that subject, right? Oh, thank you. Where were
It would be
we?
in Joshua 11:21.
Okay, Joshua. Yeah.
And that time Joshua and cut off the Anakims from the mountains and from Hebron,
Uh-huh.
from Debir and Anab, and from all the mountains of Judah and from all the mountains of Israel. Joshua destroyed them utterly with their cities.
Okay, now God told them to go in there and kill every man, woman, and child in that area, and even kill all of their animals. That's unusual. Unusual. Even the animals.
I got a question on verse 33. It says, we were in our own sight as grasshoppers, and so we were in their sight.
That's right. They were little.
They
They were
small.
big people.
So,
They were gigantic people. They were large people. And they were in this land. And guess what the Nephilim were in the old times, before the flood? Same problem. And in the last days, it says it will happen again. That's the days that we live in. So they're going to show up again. All right. So there we are. We got a little bit. Now that, all of these verses you should put with number 1 there. Why did God destroy man, beast, fowl, and creeping things by the flood? All of these reasons right there. All of them right there. Because the human race had corrupted itself in one way or the other. Okay? Yes.
What was their chapter verse in Joshua?
Joshua, what was the chapter?
11:21.
Joshua 11:21.
Thank you.
All right. So we have this. We have some information from the Scriptures. There are a lot more of them. We got Jude 14 and 15, 2 Peter 2, 4 through 7, Jude 7 and 8, 1 Timothy 1, 9 and 10. These are all cross-references to this. Okay? And I did show you a tape by Chuck Missler, the Nephilim. Is that the one you listened to?
Yes.
The Nephilim. All right? Now, when you came out to my house the other day, I was playing that tape. Some of you watched it on television. It was talking about and showing many, many scriptures concerning this. Now the name Noah. Let's trot along here. Trot along. I just want to drop one little jewel on you after in this with the Nephilim as you're going. What does the name Noah mean? Peace and safety. All right. The name Noah means peace and safety. Now, you know, I related to you that I saw a Bigfoot. I did not believe in the things at all when I saw one. It walked in front of me, across in front of me in the middle of the night, out on the road in the middle of nowhere where no Bigfoot should have ever been, as far as I'm concerned. Walked right across the road in front of me, and I became in a state of shock. I mean, I didn't believe in this thing at all. Now, two Bigfoot were killed, and they had 6 fingers and 6 toes. Now, how many fingers and toes did Goliath have? 6 fingers and 6 toes. What is the number of 6 in the Bible? Man. Now, all of a sudden, in the last days, if a whole bunch of these things just show up out of nowhere, and I said last week, what percent of the angels and demonic forces rebelled against God?
1/3.
1/3. So that means how many are on God's side? 2/3. Okay? Now, the devil's not dumb, is he? Is he? He's not dumb. All right? Now, how would he build up his forces?
That was a really question.
How would he build up his forces to try to even the odds?
Cohabiting with man.
That's right, and raising a race of these weirdos, Nephilim, to fight in the last days. Okay, now that's just a question, just a thought. All right, that's all. And do you think that he might think he could win then? There might be a little hope on his side if he could do that. Now let's think about something here. Number 1, do you think Noah was a saved man? Huh? Noah was a saved man. All right. Hebrews 11. Let's go to Hebrews 11th chapter. Hebrews chapter 11. And then someone go to Genesis 9 and start with verse 8. We're going to go both of these things, Genesis 9 and verse 8. Who's got Genesis 9? Genesis 9 and verse 8. Brother John?
Then God spoke to Noah and to his sons with him, saying, As for me, behold, I establish my covenant with you and with your descendants after you, and with every living creature that is with you, the birds, the cattle, every beast of the earth with you, of all that go out of the ark, every beast of the earth.
All right, now let's just stand right there for just a minute. Let's just think something. Did God ever make a covenant with animals? Did God ever make a covenant with the animal kingdom? Huh?
How much do you have?
Thank you, brother. Read that again, brother.
Then God spoke to Noah and to his sons with him, saying, And as for me, behold, I establish my covenant with you
With you.
and with your descendants after you,
Uh-huh.
and with every
And
living
with what?
creature.
Every living creature.
What do you know about that?
Huh.
What do you know about that? The animals are involved in that, aren't they? Let's go on. Well, let's think about it.
Yeah.
All right, think about it. I mean, we look at animals as food.
Good
All
food.
right?
Good food.
But God looks at them as more than that. All right? Go ahead, brother.
And with every living creature that is with you, the birds, the cattle, every beast of the earth with you, and all that go out of the ark, every beast of the earth.
That's right. Go on, brother.
Thus I shall establish my covenant with you. Never again shall all flesh be cut off by the waters of the flood. Never again shall there be a flood to destroy the earth.
All right. In other words, the earth will never be destroyed. God made that covenant with mankind, and He made it with the animal kingdom too. Now, in the garden, just think about this just a little bit. I mean, I want you to put your thinking hats on, people. Think. I don't care what you've been taught. I don't care what you believe. Think. Bogart used to say, think. It's a good trick if you can do it. And sometimes it is. Think for yourself and reason with the Scriptures. All right? In the garden, what was the animal in the animal kingdom that was cursed above all other? We have man being cursed, the male race being cursed, we got the female race being cursed, and then we got the animal kingdom being cursed. Why was the animal there in the garden cursed, that animal cursed above every other animal?
Because he allowed Satan to inhabit him.
That's right, he allowed Satan to inhabit him and use him. And we even find out that that curse is going to go all the way through the millennial kingdom, because the snake, Nahash, is still going to be walking on his belly and eating his food in the dust of the earth, whatever his food is. He's sure not going to be biting anybody over in the millennium, is he? No more fangs. I'm going to be eating apples and oranges. But he will be walking on his belly still. All right. Now, where else? Go on. Did you finish, Brother John?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Now, let's go to Hebrews, the 11th chapter. Hebrews chapter 11. And moment. Just one moment. Hebrews chapter 11. Let's start, let's start with verse number 6. And we're going to go through verse number 12, 6 through 12. Brother Wally, I want you to start out there.
But without faith it is impossible to please. Without faith it is impossible to please Him. For he that cometh to God must believe that He is, and that He is a rewarder of them that diligently seek Him.
Hold on right there. Now, without faith, it's impossible to please God. You can't be saved without believing. And when you believe, God changes you. Matter of fact, by faith, Ephesians 2 and 8 says, Ephesians 2 and 8, who can quote? Can anybody quote it in Greek? Translation?
For by faith you are having been saved.
Oh, for by grace ye are
By
having,
grace ye are having.
for in faith, for in grace, ye are having been saved through faith. And that faith didn't come out of you. It is a gift of God, not of works, lest any man should boast. But then we have a different story, and we're going to get that one a little bit later on. Now, Brother Luis, are you there? Are you there on number 7?
Yes.
All right.
By faith, Noah, having received intimidation concerning things not yet seen, filled with reverence, prepared an ark in the saving of his house, through which he condemned the world of the righteousness by way of faith, became heir.
Okay, now let's look at this verse very carefully. Now, so you guys, on Wednesday night, we got into this a little bit last Wednesday night because it was so that these two lessons were very closely related. By faith, Noah, having been warned of God, having been warned of God. Now, let's go back and look at this. Now, how long had Noah been warned of God?
120 years?
Oh, his whole life. Why?
Because of Enoch?
Well, go back there and start, yes, because of Enoch. Enoch preached the coming judgment of God for 300 years. He named his son what?
Methuselah.
What does Methuselah mean? It means son of the dark, or when he is dead, it shall come to pass. When he dies, the judgment would come to pass, and then he had a son. All right? Noah. Noah's in there, wasn't it? Noah means peace and safety. Every one of these names meant something very important in the plan of God, God's eternal purpose.
That they took good care of old Methuselah.
I bet they took good care of Methuselah. I bet every time he got sick, the whole country was shaken. You know what? He couldn't die until that ark was finished. Did you know that?
Probably not.
He couldn't die until the ark was finished. Do you think Noah was hurrying along? Let's look and see what this verse says. By faith, Noah, being warned of God about things not yet seen, in fear, in reverence, what did he do? Worked. Now, we see, number one, that Noah was a saved man. Number two, about Noah, now you put this down here, about Noah, okay, in this little deal. Number one, Noah was a saved man. Noah was also perfect in his genetic structure. Whatever that meant. All right? He was perfect in his generations. What did that mean? That he was not polluted by either the ungodly race or the demons. Either one. Okay? Number three, it says that he walked with God. What does that mean?
He had a desire to serve God.
He served
And
God.
did
He
what
worked
did,
for
did
God.
what he was told.
All right. Now there was a covenant of mercy and a covenant of works. Now did Noah know that the flood was coming? Had they ever seen it rain?
No.
God said the flood was coming. There were three sources of that flood we're going to cover back a little bit later. Okay? But they had never seen a flood, probably had never seen it light. No lightning, no thunder. Probably never. And why did Noah build the ark?
He knew the flood was coming.
Because God has to.
Because he was being obedient.
He was being obedient, and what is the most important thing?
Obedience.
But he believed God. Now we live in the last days. Now if we fear God, Brother Wally, you tried to witness this week concerning the last days. By the way, if you want to listen to that sermon, I've got them on DVD here from last week, and I got it on CD also. But if you go to discovertheword.com and go to Sermon of the Week there, it's over in the sub-file. You will listen to that one on there if you want to. But I'm going to tell you what, it's going to be a real task, and it's always been a real task to warn the world that the end is near.
Yeah, well, the answer you always get is that they've told us this already for 100 years and nothing's happened.
They said it for
All right.
thousands of years.
But what did Peter say in 2 Peter 3 and 9? I believe it is.
Where's the promise of his coming?
What?
The scoffers.
What's it say? The Lord is what? 2 Peter 3 and 9. Are you there, someone? 2 Peter 3 and 9.
The Lord is not slow about his promise, as some count slowness.
Oh. He's not slow about his... Because why? He lives in eternity. Now, I'll tell you what. It took Noah 120 years to build that ark. And all the time, everybody were doing what?
They're laughing at him.
Eating, drinking a bit, just going on with their business, saying, ha, ha, ha. I've been preaching for 40 years. And I see the end much nearer today than it was 40 years ago, and I guarantee you it is nearer than it was 40 years ago. It's 40 years have passed by. I don't know how near it is, but I'll tell you what, from the looks of what's going on around us, we're awful close to the end. When Israel became a nation again and started to inhabit the land, and I'm going to tell you something else that's very important. Does the nation of Israel, have in possession the city of Jerusalem? Oh, now, come on now, think. What?
They're missing the Temple Mount.
Well, they got it sort of, but they don't.
They sort of got it. When you see them going to Jerusalem and take Jerusalem, boy, I mean, we're real close, people. That may be the tribulation period. We may not see it. Now, they've got Jerusalem all right, but they don't have Jerusalem. They can't go in there. You know that the Muslims went in there and started building a super mosque and tearing out all kinds of stuff here a while back, and you know what they did about it? Nothing. If they went in there and blew that mosque of Omar off the face of this earth, tore it down, every Muslim nation around them would come running at them, because that's the second holy place to them, but it's the first holy place to the Jews. You know that the Muslims say that never was a Temple of Solomon there? Do you know that they say that?
Yeah.
They swear it wasn't even there. They swear it never existed.
Tell a lie long enough to believe it yourself.
Yeah. They swear it didn't exist. They have no access, no right to that mount, even though they bought for it with their sweat and blood. But when they get that land, boy, if that happens, you look up, for your redemption draws nigh. I mean, there are some things that are going to happen. How many of you thought about that?
Oh, I heard tapes about that. They got all the tools ready to go.
Yeah.
And Jim, they put bones over there. They put dead bodies of Muslims over there by Solomon's temple.
Now, let's look at this a little bit more. What we see here with Noah is a covenant of grace. He was saved by grace, but it's also a covenant of works. A covenant of works. What did Noah do? Would Noah's family have been saved if he had not built the ark?
No.
No. Now, in your own lives, this is an analogy. If you say you're saved and you live like the devil, or you live in an unconcerning way of life, in front of your children, in front of your family, in front of your friends, do you think any of them's ever going to come to the Lord? You didn't build your ark either, did you? A child of God ought to do something for the Lord. Oh, now, hold on right there, Brother Luis, where you are, in Hebrews. All right, number 7. Let's go on Ephesians 2 and 8. All right, and let's read on there. Brother John, are you there? All right.
Ephesians
Brother
2 and
Nick,
8.
Ephesians 2 and 8 onward. Does anybody have
Yeah,
that
I've
one?
got it.
All right, go ahead.
But I got to read it in mine, okay?
Oh, that's all right.
For by grace you have been saved through faith, and not of yourselves, it is a gift of God, not of works, lest anyone should boast. For we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand that we should walk in them.
All right, that we should walk in. When you're saved, then you go to work. Do you know that when you signed this contract with God of your salvation, that there was work involved on your part? We got saved by grace, but God's going to change your life in such a way that you're going to go to work for Him. That you will desire to work for Him. That you will want. It'll make going to church a lot easier. It'll make witnessing to your friends a whole lot easier. Because your life has changed and you don't want them to be in hell or you're in heaven. There was a lost man in hell praying to God. Remember? Wanting his relationship not to come to this place. Asking and begging that one would be sent back from the dead. And of course it's been done, hasn't it? It's already been done. All right, now that's very good. Now, Brother Luis, can you read the rest of that verse? In reverence, in fear, he prepared an ark for the salvation of his what?
Saving of his house.
Of his household. By which?
Through which he condemned the world of the righteous by way of faith, became heir.
Became an heir of righteousness. An heir of righteousness. A son of righteousness. Which is according to what? Faith. All right? And look at, go on down to verse 9. Verse 8. Go on, brother.
By faith being called, Abraham obeyed to come forth into a place he was destined to receive for an inheritance. He came forth not well knowing whether he was coming.
All right. And verse 9.
By faith he sojourned in the land of promise as a foreign land, in tents dwelling, along with Isaac and Jacob, the joint heirs of the same promise.
Now listen to this. Now I was preaching this to my wife this week. By faith he lived as an alien in a land of promise. In a foreign land, dwelling in nomadic tents. With Isaac and Jacob and the fellow heirs of the same promise, looking for the city which builder and foundation, whose architect is builder is God. How long did that go on? How long did it go on? When did Abraham live? Long time ago. Way before Christ. Hundreds, thousands of years before Christ. Way back there. Almost 2,000 years BC. All right? Now, long time ago. Here we have, way back then. We have Abraham's descendants. And Abraham, God told him to leave that gigantic city over there, the Ur of the Chaldees, in Iran. He told him to get out of there and go to the land that I'll show you. All right? And he lived in that land. He went there, but did he ever possess that land? What part of that land did he ever own by a title deed? What?
The tomb?
The tomb of Machpelah, down there in Hebron. And Israel don't even have that today. They're fighting over that all the time. I've been there. That's Abraham's tomb. Abraham's buried there. And Isaac and Jacob. And Joseph's bones were carried there. These are all buried in that cave. And there is a clear title deed in history of that cave. And all it is a burial place. That's all. And by the way, this is where the giants live.
Didn't he pay?
This is where the Nephilim live.
Didn't he pay enough for that piece to cover the entire land? Overcharging him.
They overcharged him. Doesn't matter because he's going to own it all one of these days. But he didn't own it, did he? Did he ever own anything but the cave? He buried his descendants in it. Joseph said, take me back there and bury my bones there. And Jacob said, take me back and bury my bones there in that cave. He wanted to be buried in his land. Now, think for all the hundreds of years. How many of you own land that you plan on giving to your children? Well, how many of you own land that you plan on leaving to your children? All right. How about if they never got it for 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 years after you promised it to them? How many of you think they would live in that promise? Huh? How many do you think they would live believing that? I'm going to tell you something about them ungodly Jews over there. A bunch of them are ungodly, aren't they? Ungodly people. But they believe that promise. Think about it. They believe the promise that God made to Abraham and He made to Jacob. They believe it. And they have believed it for thousands of years and never really, they bought it by money. God told Abraham, in your seed will all nations be blessed. In your seed, singular. What does that encompass?
More than one.
In your singular seed, all nations will be blessed. And then about Sarah. Look down here about Sarah. Let's go on, Brother Luis.
By faith, even Sarah herself received power for founding a seed, even beyond the season of Eli's prime, seeing the faithful she reckoned him that had promised.
That woman was too old to have a kid. But she had a child. And through this child would the Messiah be born. You know what? Abraham wasn't near as important as Sarah was. Because the Messiah would be the seed of what? Woman. And God had to protect that woman, didn't He? 2 times He sold her to somebody else. And God had to protect her, and she believed. Boy, she believed. And that's something she believed. In spite of old Abraham. You know, Abraham is just kind of like us. He's also called the father of the faith and the faithful. But he's an ungodly buzzard just like our fleshly natures. And we try to trust in ourselves and what we can do instead of God so many times, don't we?
In spite of herself, too, because she gave Hagar to...
And what did Isaac do? God told him which child was supposed to be the heir. And the woman had to step in there, didn't she? Esau and Jacob. Esau was not the heir, and God said he would not be the heir. And who did Isaac want to be the heir?
No.
He wanted Ishmael to be the heir. He was his firstborn. Ishmael also.
Yeah, Esau
Here,
too.
let's go back to to Abraham. Abraham's the same way. He wanted Ishmael to be the heir and not Isaac. So God used that woman, Sarah, and she said, get that woman out of my house. Got rid of her. And then God used Isaac's wife because he wanted to make an heir out of the wrong son again. And so here we have Jacob, the second born. Now what is Ishmael a type of? And Hagar? And all of these? The world. And it's our first birth too, isn't it? We're born, the first time we're born in this world, we're born cursed by our Father. We're born cursed. When we're born again, the second birth, the first birth just isn't valid to get you into heaven. I don't care whether you're Jew either. The first birth condemns you. The second birth, the birth from above, as John wrote in the Gospel of John, when Jesus was talking to Nicodemus in the 3rd chapter, he said, you must be born from above. Your first birth didn't work. That's only going to get you to hell. That only made you live and breathe and sin. The second one, the birth from above, is the one that's important. By faith, Sarah herself received the ability, power to conceive even beyond the proper time of life, since she considered him, God, faithful, who had promised. Therefore there was born of one man, and him as good as dead, at that as many descendants as the stars of heaven, and innumerable as the sand of the sea. And all of these died in what? In faith. There's not every Jew who ever had that land. You know, David went in there and conquered a lot of land. But how long did it stay in they didn't even have it all, did they? Not all of it. Solomon, the great king. And Solomon was a king of glory, all right, and a type of Christ, but he's also a type of man in all of his foolishness at the same time. And then his sons, Rehoboam and Jeroboam, and what happened there? They split the land up. And Israel went the wrong way, and then they lost the land, and then they became captives, and they became slaves of others. But God made a promise still, didn't he? There was still a promise there all the time. And here we are in this day. But remember, God is not slow concerning his promises or his curses, people. We have lived and we have seen this. I tell you what, those Jewish people are a people of faith to believe that God will someday give them that land. I don't care how ungodly they are, there's an element of faith there that is beyond my understanding. If you promised your children going to give you your farm, but it's going to be 4,000 years from now, Brother Wally, how many of you think it will hang around?
Probably give up on it.
They give up on it sooner or later. It's all over. But they have held on tenaciously like a bulldog to that deed, to that land over there by God.
Did you know, when they give them built in 1948?
May the 14th, 1948. Noah means peace and safety. Noah was a just man. What does it mean? That he was saved. That's number 3. Number 4. In what way was Noah perfect in his generations? He was not defiled. His generations were not defiled. And then, number 5, before we're going to start next week. Number 5. List Noah's sons, and we'll go back over that just a little bit. And then we're going to go into the ark, and we're going to start studying about this ark. This type of the rapture. This type of the coming of the Lord. Because judgment is coming. You believe judgment's coming? Yes. Why, Jesus talked more about the judgment back during his lifetime right here than he did about heaven. And preachers been preaching about that all these years. But people just slough it off. And they go on eating and drinking and getting married and giving in marriage. Just like they are today. But, beloved, understand the Lord is not slow concerning his promises. He is long-suffering. That what? That none should perish, but all should come what? To the knowledge, the salvation of the Lord. Thank you for your attention today. I hope you enjoyed the class. I hope you got some notes down there. And share what you learned today with the world. Go out and do something eternal this week. Brother David.
Couple of announcements. We have the singles news. I guess they're sponsored.